Okay, good evening, and I'm so excited to be talking to these three folks in front of me, Jeremy and Mary and Katie. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment. The topic is my favorite one in the world. A while back, I wrote a piece called Singing Our Way into Fluency. And Jeremy and his friends here have taken that to a whole new level. So I'll begin. And yes, that can happen. And it's based on, by the way, Tim Rzazinski's work. And Tim's who introduced me to Jeremy. But let's just do a quick round robin here. That's a terrible thing to say, round robin. Oh dear.
Round robin, yeah.
Yeah, a quick round robin. Just tell us who's with us here. Jeremy, go ahead and start.
Okay, yeah. Jeremy Spartz, and as a teacher for 15 years and created Lyrics2Learn. Since then, I've been doing research, tutoring, working with some really amazing individuals, two of which are here with us, and just trying to make a job out of my passion. That's what it boils down to.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Mary Gregory, and I have been teaching for 31 years. I started in high school English. I did that 2 years. I taught 8th grade English for 14 years, and now I'm a reading specialist and an instructional coach. And I think we've been using Lyrics2Learn for 12 years at my school.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Lucky people. Okay. And Katie.
My name's Katie Ackerman. I'm from Colorado, and I have been in education for over 12 years. And if you count all student teaching and substitute teaching and all of that, yeah, a lot of time. And I am a teaching and learning coach right now. So I'm working in the trenches with all of the teachers, making sure that we're impacting kids the best way that we can. And now I tutor with Jeremy as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, now let's get into it. And what happens is you don't see it, but I do. I change the view to speaker, and then whoever's talking gets the big screen. And we'll start by tossing this first question at Jeremy and then see what happens from there. So here we go. Jeremy, how did the idea of music-based reading fluency come about, and what is Lyrics2Learn? Please talk about it. Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I tell you, it was a story that kind of accumulated throughout my entire teaching career, multiple grade levels, but I'll give you the short version. So it started with poetry slams in 2nd grade. We called it Seussish, and my kids would write their own poems using kind of a Dr. Seuss type format. And they would master a Dr. Seuss story because the rhyme and the cadence really helped them, through repeated reading, master a story. And then I could break it down and do all sorts of things with phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, fluency, whatever I wanted. But they loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing. So I started poetry slams, and that included hundreds of kids in the school doing their own thing. Then when I moved to 4th grade, I had a group of 8 boys that just hated reading, but they loved hip hop. And so I thought, okay, I will write a few stories in iambic pentameter, which is essentially kind of like hip hop, and try and help them with their reading fluency. And I decided to put a little bit of a rhythm to it. And I'm not the world's greatest musician, but I did some research into fluency. I'd been researching all sorts of things prior to that. But fluency was something new for me. So I would read out loud. We kind of combined modeled reading, assisted reading, repeated reading, choral reading, and then we added the hip hop to make it fun for our kids, right? I wanted them to get into reading. And it blew me away. It blew them away. They were mastering stories. The rest of the class asked if they could do it. My principal came in. She asked me what I was doing. I started tutoring 20 to 30 kids at a time before school. And it's kind of evolved from there. And so now it's called Lyrics2Learn, this methodology. And Lyrics2Learn now is, man, we have hundreds of stories, scaffolded comprehension. So as kids do their repeated reading, become more familiar with the story, The questioning level increases in complexity to try and push that level of comprehension. There's a lot to it. It has been a whirlwind, but that's the gist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a couple of numbers that I picked up on as I was reading through your materials. How many kids right now are on the program overall? How many teachers are involved?
Okay, there's 2,000, over 2,000 teachers and over 20,000 kids. Most of the states in the US are using, have schools or teachers using it in some capacity. And then, yeah, we also do some online tutoring, and these two are, man, rock stars at that. So yeah, it's starting to move, and it's pretty exciting, Sam.
Okay, and it is like a turnkey kind of program. I just logged on myself, and you log on and put in your kids, and then things happen from there. Okay, so anything more on this question of how it evolved before we move on to Katie and Mary and ask them about their experience with the program? So anything more that an audience needs to know before Katie and Mary dive into, hey, here's the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, I think the evolution of Lyrics2Learn has just been really fun because it started off as just fluency, right? And the kids were engaged, they were motivated, they were building confidence. But what ended up happening is they were building background knowledge and retaining so much of the information that the more comprehension, I think, the National Reading Panel has 9 comprehension strategies that we ended up tying into kind of the scaffolded approach. And the more kids retain, just the more powerful it's become, especially as we get hands-on and targeted with it. It just becomes a lot of fun because the kids, are bebopping around, mastering each story, and they think it's real fun, but they just don't understand the complexity of what's happening in their brain and the benefit for them. So yeah, it's great.
Okay, and what you just said kind of gave me a bit of a remembrance about things that Tim Rosinski have said, and that is when you do the repeated reading kinds of things like you're doing, when they go from this repeated reading to the next, they don't go back to the original level. They're
No.
up a level, and they're up a level again. So it really, really, really builds on itself. And by the way, this is a program that's on computer, and those kind of things happen. So now it's time to talk nuts and bolts. Okay, so I'm going to let Katie and Mary have a whack at this. I would mention, they've already mentioned in their preview of themselves that they are district leaders, a lot of experience. They are teachers. Okay, and teachers doing a great job. So tell us something about using Lyrics2Learn. What do you see from the kids? What does it look like, feel like, sound like in the classes? And this kind of, what I really love about it, by the way, is that it does have both. It has the fluency and the comprehension check. So I'm happy to hear that. So I'm talking too much and you're not. So let's turn things over to either Mary or Katie. Somebody jump in.
So I use Lyrics2Learn in tutoring with Jeremy. Our school district, it's a whole thing with them, but so we use it in tutoring. And one of the biggest pieces of reading that's so important is data-driven instruction. I can't make good decisions for my students that I'm teaching if I don't use data to help guide me. We all have that teacher gut, but unless you see it and you know what they know and you're tracking it, then you have no growth data. You just don't know what to do. So my kids tutor with me, and then I assign them different passages, and they read every week at home, at least 3 days during the week, 3 times each time. And then when they meet with me the following week, I have them read to me to show me that they've mastered it and they're using all of their areas of fluency. And the funny part is some like to sing to me, They sing the story to me, and when I ask them if they can read it, you can still kind of hear them singing, so that's kind of fun. But they really do enjoy it. It's just a good piece of the lesson that adds something else that's not in our session.
Okay. And Mary, what about what do the lessons look like? What's the program like? What are the kids doing what they go on the screen and then what? Tell us about a little bit about that.
So when they sign on, they see their story. They click on day one and they follow along and they sing the song with Lefty Lyric is his name. And
Okay.
and they do it 3 times. So it's 3 times they're reading it, and then they answer questions. And day one, it's kind of like the lower level comprehension questions. And each day they read it again 3 times, they sing it. Like if you walk in a classroom, the first grade classroom in my school, they all have on headphones and they're all singing different things. It's the coolest thing ever. Because
Delightful.
right, because students we work with, we don't like doing things that we don't feel like we're good at, So even students I've worked with that I pull out and I work in small groups, they're like, do we have to read? Because they don't feel like they're good readers. So when you can find something that makes reading fun, it's all worth it. To see the smiles on their faces, all of them grow in reading, in their reading fluency, and most of all in their confidence and their love for reading.
I was looking at some of your data around that, and the difference between some repeated reading and a lot of repeated reading. There were some repeated reading, boy, good results. More again repeated reading, oh my gosh, results. Blow away results. So that's good to know. Well, any war stories about, say, a kid that came in? Wow, any kids like that are there any that have been turned around by this program?
Well, one that I tutored, one that I just finished tutoring, she just finished, I guess she did it almost a year on the tutoring program with Lyrics2Learn. She came to where she would, turn her camera off in the beginning, a middle school student, because she didn't like it. When I would call on her, she would, to read or whatever, she did not like it. She came at the end, she finished on grade level, and she actually rewrote figurative language, and she made her own Lyrics2Learn figurative language. And she was so excited about it. She wanted me to share it with, Mr. Jeremy. It was hard to see her go. I hated to let her go, but she is so much more confident as a reader, and she likes reading now. So,
and I've had a ton of those kids too, that they really, really struggle when you start working with them. I'm thinking of a kid I still have right now who I've worked with for over 6 months, but he really struggled. He was at a middle of first grade level in a 3rd grade class, and this is his 2nd year in 3rd grade. And his parents knew he needed something, so they brought him to us, and now he's actually he's gotten through the 1st grade content, he's finished the 2nd grade content, and he's reading 3rd grade passages now. And he's confident and he's excited and he can do it. And he said it transfers to school too.
Yeah.
So just a lot of success stories here. And the next question just talks about what kids do on Lyrics2Learn. I think we may have covered that, but just in case, anything more to say about what are they doing besides rocking out with the whole class rocking out with headphones on and everybody's singing? What else is happening?
Well, I can touch on that real quick, and I'll be fast in case the two of you want to add something. So one part of it that we added a little bit later, well, there's 2 parts that I just want to touch on. One is called hot tips. So when kids get to the comprehension, lots of times as teachers, it's hard to get our kids to be thoughtful about question taking. It's half the battle is, can I spend some time on this, check the text, find reasonable answers versus unreasonable answers. I mean, there's a lot of strategies that we can use with our kids, right, to help them be thoughtful question takers. And so we added hot tips. So at the beginning of each comprehension, whether it's DOK 1, 2, or 3, or day 1, 2, or 3, they're matched. There are hot tips that tell the kids, you know, look for words like first or next or last. That's a sequencing question, and you can identify, you know, or whatever it might be, or crossing out unreasonable answers. But Lefty gives these little hot tips to kids so that they are kind of working with a goal in mind and being a little bit more focused. And then we added constructed response for the 3rd through 6th graders, which is a lot of fun because, you know, they're really practicing those high level thinking skills after they've retained the information. So we don't ask them to answer high level things when they don't have the background knowledge for it. We build that, and then we try and teach them those skills. That's my piece.
I would just say, you know, this program does help because of the comprehension and how the comprehension piece is set up. They do have to go back in the text and find the answer sometimes because they can't remember that, and that's okay. But it's getting them ready for those state assessments, which, love them or hate them, we have to do them. So,
Yeah.
but they have to go back and look in the text and figure it out. And that extension question helps them too.
And in the extension, they have to assess themselves. Like, how did I do on this? You know, give themselves a 1, 2, or 3. So they score themselves, and they are, from my experience, they are hard on themselves.
Yeah.
Well, from a technical standpoint, because I went in and used a little of it, and your little videos are just amazing. It's like you've got a little person in there leaning over your shoulder, and I'm you know, Jeremy's there a lot, so I'm kind of, oh, I'm talking to this famous guy. I saw him on that website. All right, but it's masterful and it's quick. So I'm very impressed with that. You know, we've said that it's been used by 20,000 students around the US, and there's a tutoring component, and you've touched on that a little, but how is that going? And brag on your evidence about how it's going. And before I ask for more evidence, we had a kind of a pre-conversation around the whole issue of evidence. You have a really great study already, but like all vendors, you know, the vendor pays for evaluation and nobody believes it then. What you really need here is someone independent to take a look at this with the kind of numbers you have and the replicable program that you have. It's some doctoral candidate's dissertation person dream. Okay, so I just want to mention that I have several of my friends who teach those kind of courses for the doctoral students. And what you really, in addition to the Denver program, study, and please brag away on that. But besides that, this is almost, and I got your permission to do this, a plea out there for some other independent folks to also come take a look at what's going on. And the ends are like incredible with 20,000 students. I mean, oh my gosh. The possibilities for a serious research study to find out what's good and what's bad, and, you know, in the whole 9 yards. So that's my little plug to try to get you somebody that might do that.
I appreciate that.
Okay, but that said, let's go back to the 20,000 students using it and the tutoring component. How is it going? How's this evidence coming along?
I think maybe we can do the same thing here because all 3 of us have been in the trenches with kids, and the tutoring component is only about a year old. And I started doing it just mostly because I missed working with kids. And I was talking with parents who were using it at their homes for their kids, and they just were struggling to such a high level that I agreed to see some, and I would use Lyrics2Learn and combine that with a full reading evaluation, targeting the skills that they need in all 5 components. And so really all we're doing is using Lyrics2Learn with pretty quality differentiated instruction, right? I mean, it's not rocket science, but the beautiful part of this that feels so good and has for the entire year is talking with the parents and seeing the kids increase, because, you know, Katie and Mary mentioned 2 kids that they had. I have data from all of their kids, and I just can't tell you how excited I am about the potential, which is why I really want to get one of those independent studies done. I don't, you know, there's a lot of vendors who are paying for studies, and there are leanings, or at least temptations toward leanings when that happens. It's natural. And I really want something that's uncolored, unfiltered, because the things we're seeing, I think more people need to see them. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting almost emotional, which makes my brain fire synapses in odd directions here, Sam.
Well, you've got something to be emotional about, so no problem.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So anyways, since that first 6 months where I was working with kids, then I brought in some rock star teachers, these 2 being 2 of them. There are 5 others. So we're just kind of like a little tight-knit family helping kids on the side. And I'll let you 2, you know, just say what you think so far, what you've seen so far, uncolored, unfiltered.
So I have 4 different tutoring groups throughout the week that I meet with, and they're all different levels of kids. No matter where they're at, I just want to meet their needs. So if they're strictly working on phonics skills, or they need multisyllabic word reading or whatever, you know, it's really skill-based stuff. And then the component that I add with Lyrics2Learn is that they're practicing consistently. And then I also have them read with me too. It's kind of a variety of activities that we do with them, but and I think all of the tutors are kind of different because we all have our different little pieces and expertise that we have. But I just have found it to be like exciting for myself to see the kids grow. And, you know, like Jeremy said, he's out of the classroom and so am I now. So I did miss working with the kids and getting to work with them so closely and get to know them. And now I get to do that again, but it's online through a computer. And it's kind of funny though, because all these kids are from different cities all around the country. And they're shocked when they find out that you're in a different time zone and they want to know about you. And they're just excited to be with you. So
this is sounding a little different from the tune I sometimes hear about remote learning. So it sounds like, and by the way, I'm a huge fan and have used remote learning for the very longest time. So I know it can work, but I know there are some people for whom it hasn't worked. So sometime you ought to write something up about how you made it work, because it really sounds like you did. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is working to the point where the 2 students that these 2 had mentioned had both gained between 2 and 3 years, depending on our assessment or their school's assessment. And it's both, right? The schools, whether they're doing iReady or MAP, or it doesn't matter what kind of test, it's showing something similar. Ours is much more detailed in terms of all the levels of comprehension and phonemic awareness and phonics and so forth, and fluency. But it's really exciting. Mary, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just all about building relationships too. I've built relationships with the families. One of my students, the sister always comes on because she helps her sign on. And then the sister gets on and talks to me. The mom gets on and talks to me. Everybody talks. But it's really cool because I've developed friendships. Like one of them's mom calls me and we talk, you know, and she's not my student anymore. It's nice to just have a community of helping these students learn to read and become better readers. It's been a great experience. And I'll get so busy. I'm like, okay, I gotta stop doing something. And I told my boyfriend, I'm not going to stop Lyrics2Learn. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to stop that. Because he's like, you just light up. He said, if I walk in and you're tutoring, you just light up. And it's because I love it. I love it.
Okay. And by the way, I do something similar myself, and for exactly the same reason. it's you can't take the teacher out of a teacher, and just the chance to work with kids is just wonderful. Um, let's talk before we wrap things up. Let's talk a little bit more about Tim Rosinski then. Tim is who kind of introduced me to you all. And I know that you've been impacted by his work. So, and just anything more to say about that before we look for final thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I met Tim. It was a little bit backwards, actually. I started this whole strategy, and then once it was working so well, I thought, man, someone has to be doing something like this. And that's when I ran across Tim. And that's when he was at Kent State, and he was doing his reading club with kids, and they were performance based. It was readers theater, but it's a very similar concept, right? They were mastering essentially a play or a story and performing it. And you have that emotional connection, that mastery of inflection and fluency and emotion connected to voice. And so when I saw that he was doing that, and I looked at some of his data and results, just fireworks in my brain, and I reached out to Tim, and he was kind enough to Zoom with me, and he became kind of a pseudo board member for Lyrics2Learn, and he's been a mentor of mine for, oh man, years now. Just bouncing ideas back and forth and talking about things. And then thankfully, Sam introducing me to you.
Well, and I'll just put a plug in here that I have a number of friends now that are all in this kind of same boat. Eric Litwin has a book out around this, and he is really a performance-based person. Mary Kay from the rock and roll music has it going on. Those folks from England, HFL, have it going on. So, and then there's some definite brain research and around this, some very serious research around it. And I'm just thinking, but before all this is said and done, I want to get this whole crew together, maybe collaborating on an article or something, because it looks like this is a movement to me. It looks like this has some real possibilities. And some of the things are just exciting, that fluency, as you folks are handling it, it's not just a product. Fluency, by teaching fluency, it's a cause. Okay. And some of my friends that I was talking to around this whole topic were like, what? What are you saying? Are you saying you can teach fluency and that improves things? And Tim's famous quote of fluent, and you've got a wonderful graphic around that. Fluency is the bridge. Okay. So all those kinds of things. So that's my brain shooting off and rocketing around. Okay, so hopefully this will not be the last time we talk about this. So
Certainly not.
This is the part of the interview then where I give a last call. Is there something that you really needed to say that you haven't had a chance to say, or something more you want to add? Now's the time. Chime in. Final thoughts.
So I'm a big proponent about parent support. And one of the things that works with our tutoring company and with Lyrics2Learn, and probably in your classrooms too, is that when you get parents on board to help support their kids because they know they're struggling, but they don't know what to do to help them. And, Mary said she talks to parents, but I have parents in the background of their kids all the time in my sessions, and they're bought into this. And so their kids are excited. And like, that's a key. I mean, all you teachers out there, that too. That's a key to success. So like, big shout out to the parents too in our tutoring, because they're helping their kids.
Yeah, and I will say it does seem pretty, I haven't had a parent yet that has seen kind of this supplement, right? Lyrics2Learn tied to targeted individualized instruction, and said, well, that doesn't make sense. All of them are like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This is so cool. And I think it makes it easier to get behind, especially when your kids aren't arguing as much about doing their reading practice when there's a little bit more to it. Yeah.
Okay. And I usually don't chime in at the end, but I'm going to, because what I want to say is, I've kind of had a look at the depth and breadth of the materials that you have available, and the not just levels of reading, but quality reading, starting at pre-K and all the way through. So a lot of materials there. And one final thing, all it takes, and the link will be there. Anyone that's interested, you provide a free trial so that they can see what they can see. So there's one final silly tradition in a Bommarito interview. Okay. And that tradition is the Zoom wave goodbye. So everybody get your waving hand ready. And we're just going to say goodbye to our audience here. And thank you all so much. This has been delightful. And sing your way into fluency, folks. And thanks so much. Bye-bye.